Hello everybody, you found Nintoonist. Haven't said that in a real long time, have I? Welcome to my review of Mario Strikers Charged. We're gonna be... Wait, did I just say Charged? Oh, no, crap, that's the old one. That's the one for the Wii. No, crap, damn it. No, redo. Welcome to my review of Mario Strikers Battle League, the 15-year-long... Wow, 15 years since Charged. That's insane, I'm old. The 15-year-long awaited sequel to Mario Strikers Charged for the Wii. We now finally have a Mario Strikers game on the Switch. Those of you who follow me on Twitter, which I know isn't most of you, would have known by now that this was one of my absolute most anticipated games to be on the Switch. Even before they announced it, I've been praying for another Mario Strikers game to be on the Switch, and now we finally have it. So I decided to come out of my, 3-year-long, game review hibernation to finally make a game review of this one specifically to let you guys know what I think. Is it good? Does it hold up compared to the original games? Are there enough characters? Is the gear like? Is the blah? Does the game do my taxes? Blah, 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 blah. We're gonna find out all of that today. And totally not because I'm making some of my more older style videos again to get people to listen to my shitty podcast. Okay, let's go! Starting off with the sort of optional introduction to the game, quote unquote, we have the training. Now, I know there are some people who probably just skip tutorials, it's a Mario game, it's a Mario sports game, it's probably really simple. What's the point of really going in and hitting training? I'm an Alpha Chad Omega Bertha Booty Buns Deluxe gamer. I'm not sitting down and spending however long, how many time to try to train in this game and learn the mechanics, Nintoonist. Unlike you, I'm not a noob. Well, if for some weird reason that wild caricature was you, I would put your ego in check and move it away right now, because I would actually advise you to do the training in this game solely due to how many mechanics there are. It's just like in the older Strikers games, these games actually have quite a bit of depth to them, and it's in that good old patented Nintendo fashion of having a lot of depth to it without necessarily being overly complicated. However, in comparison to some of the older Strikers games, this one is a lot to take in. I mean, seriously, look at how much shit is on my f***ing screen right now. Literally the most basic mechanics, like passing and tackling and shooting, have multiple nuanced mechanics built into them to do them in all sorts of different ways. I'm not gonna lie to you all, I took about 45 minutes upon first booting up the game to go through all of the trainings, and I still could not complete the final 2 trainings until my second time booting up the game. Now, I'm not trying to make the game seem like this overly complicated piece of dookie that you jump into and you don't know what you're doing. It's not. If you want to jump into the game and find out that A is to shoot, B is to pass, Y is to lob pass, X is to use items, blah blah blah, go right on for it. That might be the best way for some of y'all to learn. But I'm just telling you straight up right now, the game has a lot of deep, nuanced mechanics that we're going to get more in-depth into later that, honestly, is worth taking a little bit of time practicing in on. And besides, the trainings are fun. You got Clank's cousin Footbot teaching you how to do every single thing in this game. Ooh, Footbot. Moving on to what is probably the biggest change from the last Strikers game over to this one, we have gear. Gear, in a way, is what is basically assisting in essentially replacing the sidekick system that was found in the prior Mario Strikers games. In the old Mario Strikers games, your team consisted of a captain and a couple of sidekicks that had their own different unique little abilities that you paired on with your team to just play the game however you wanted. Instead of having different sidekicks and one captain with different stats to build your team, you have 4 captains, essentially, that do that, who can all do hyper strikes, but you can adjust their stats to your liking with gear to gear them more towards how you specifically like to play the game. For example, if you're a player who's more prone to tackling and resistance to being tackled, then muscle stats are your go. If you're one who wants to just make sure you can run as fast as you possibly can, you're going to want to equip some of the turbo gear. If you want to make sure your shooting power is as maxed out as it possibly can be, you're going to want to use some of that cannon gear on there. If you're having a little bit of trouble getting the ball to your teammates right when you need them to, you're going to want to equip some of the chain gear. And finally, if you're having a hard time utilizing the timing of some of the techniques that you have to do in this game, like hyper strikes, you're gonna want to equip some of that trick gear. You buy gear with coins, which you earn from playing games. You win games, you get more coins. You lose, you get chump change that you have to give to the homeless guy who camps outside your office. I know you try to look the other way, but he's there. He's always there. Now, I low-key liked the old sidekick system. I think it had a bit of a personality to it where you can equip a Toad, a Dry Bones, a Birdo, a Hammer Brother, and I thought that was cool because it allowed a little bit more immersion towards the Mario universe in that, like, you had all the different types of Mario baddies that you could equip for your team, like Shy Guys, Koopas, the works. However, from an objective standpoint, I do think the gear system is better. Which is funny, because I normally don't like it when my games have too many customization options, because my obsessive compulsive ass spends way too long trying to find the most optimal thing for me and comparing it to what the most optimal thing is in general, and so far and so forth until I spend about 45 minutes looking at a menu before I get to sit in a game. However, I think the gear system is better because in my opinion it adds a lot more replayability to the game than Charged had. And here's what I mean by that. In Strikers Charged, there was essentially no reason not to run a Dry Bones on your team. He was one of the best partners, his special shot was absolutely broken, and when you charge the ball up enough, he could literally teleport into your goal. Now, I never played Charged competitively or anything, but I'm pretty sure from what I remember, Dry Bones was a pretty big part of the meta. And who knows, in the future, having certain characters or having certain gear might accomplish the exact same thing in this game. But for now, what gear seems like to me is that it seems like a way to tailor your characters and tailor the game to be played in the specific way that you like to play the game. For example, Bowser already has amazing shooting, so I tried to make his already amazing shooting even better while making sure he had just enough speed to be able to steal the ball when he has to. I tried to balance out his stats. Whereas for Toad, I tried to make that little bastard as fast as humanly possible. He was already one of the fastest characters in the game, but I decided to go full turbo mode with that little prick. Look at him! He looks like something out of like a Disney-fied Nintendo crossover of Tron. Why is he the fastest character in the game? He doesn't have any legs! And not to mention the fact that because you can adjust individual character stats, say there's a particular character that you're a big fan of that you really want on your team, say like you're a big Yoshi fan, but you don't like how his stats are not powerful enough, for, say in shooting, or passing, or whatever his shitty stat is, I don't remember. Well, now you can give him specific gear to boost that stat up, and then you can still have Yoshi on your team, even though his particular character archetype is not what you initially wanted for your roster. Despite them removing sidekicks from the game, and, you know, the game itself, albeit having a pretty small roster, which I hope they very much fix later on, I think the gear system honestly adds a lot of good replayability and diversity and customization to the game that the prior Strikers games didn't necessarily have fully, but they also kinda had in their own special little way. But I do think Battle League, for the most part, improves on that formula. That being said, my only real complaint about gear is that I like how some of the gear looks more than the others, if I'm being honest. Like, the turbo gear honestly looks really cool, especially on Rosalina. Like, oh my god, yo, look at them legs. But then it doesn't really matter how that gear looks aesthetically. It might adjust a stat that you don't actually want changed to begin with, which seems like kind of a nitpicky thing to complain about for the gear, but I don't know. Like, there's some sort of sick, twisted nature in all of us playing, like, dress-up with our favorite characters in these games. So, the fact that, you know, the gear isn't always equated, like, to how it looks based on what it actually does is kind of meh, but definitely nothing game-ruining in my opinion. I'm not gonna complain about that. I don't, you know, I'm not on Twitter that much. A lot of the basic mechanics, or pretty much all the basic mechanics that you found in the original Mario Strikers games, are still here and have been pretty much improved upon for the most part, so I think I'm just gonna focus on talking about what's really different, and the first thing that comes to mind would definitely be how Hyper Strikes are performed in this game. In the original Strikers games, only the captain was able to perform a Mega Strike, which is when you charge the ball, you got the ball by yourself, you charged it in the corner, and you were able to do a super duper mega, you know, Dragon Ball Z shot that gave you 2 points, or sometimes even more, depending on how well you executed it. Now, Hyper Strikes are done by acquiring an orb that spawns on the field, and they balance the sporadic nature of that randomly spawning orb by making the Hyper Strikes themselves a lot easier to do. This is a change that at first seems kinda sus, like, alright, you get an orb, it affects your entire team, and now every character can do a Hyper Strike, and it's easier to do. But it kinda does make sense, because imagine if they didn't implement something like the Hyper Strike, when every single character on your team can do it. The entire meta would essentially just revolve around it completely, and every single character at all times would just be trying to isolate themselves by going for the Hyper Strike, since every character can do it now. There's the free pass now, which allows you to pass the ball to literally any section of the field that you want at any given time, which is another good change, because now by passing the ball, you don't just have to pass it to your teammates anymore. You can pass it to another section of the field, change characters, and then have that character run to pick it up, which allows all sorts of new strategy to be implemented. Honestly, it's a lot like Mario Tennis Aces in that the game just has a lot of depth without being too complicated, which is really, really good. However, that being said, it's also a lot like Tennis Aces in that the single player is pretty bare bones. Which, for a game that's centered around its multiplayer, even though you can't do 4v4 battles online as of right now, which is really, really dumb, is honestly okay for the most part, because the cup battles are still there. The cup battles are essentially the tournament mode of this game, which has each one themed around a certain mechanic. Passing, shooting, strength, etc., with a secret one that you can actually unlock, and I don't know what it is yet, don't f***ing spoil it for me. And the way it works is that it's like a double bracketed tournament against the AI, which is just a little too easy, in my opinion, but you know, part of me feels like I don't have a right to complain about that since, you know, it's a Mario game and it's supposed to be easy. Maybe, I haven't completed all the tournaments yet, so maybe the later ones are a lot harder. I would hope that they are, with how much I want to improve at this game, but, you know. Cup battles are also the fastest way to get coins. And by fastest, I mean absolutely fastest. Upon completing a cup battle for the first time, you get 400 coins, which allows you to buy 4 separate pieces of gear, which, despite, you know, the difficulty of them not being what I'd like them to be, really incentivizes you to play them. Cup battles aren't exactly like a story mode or a campaign like you'd find in Mario Tennis Aces or Mario Golf Super Rush respectively, but for a game that is generally designed around its chaotic nature and its multiplayer, I really don't feel like it needs one to be good. I mean, I guess for the people who aren't as heavily into, like, competition and the competitive nature that these games have can be a little more disappointed. I mean, I know for a fact that if I was a kid and there wasn't a story mode to this game, I probably would have been a little disappointed, but another part of me probably would have been too young to care. Really, I feel like I would have enjoyed just really playing this game with my friends all the more and all the merry while, so honestly, a lot of different mechanics are in this game. It's not quite the same as Charged. I mean, Charged in a way felt like a little more fluid at times. I think it ran at a higher FPS if I'm not mistaken. The buffering system might have been a little different, which the buffer system I actually like in this game quite well. It's a little hard to get used to at first, but upon a little bit of practice you get used to it. Honestly, as far as the gameplay goes, it's good old-fashioned Strikers gameplay, just minus the motion controls this time around, which I'm pretty sure we're all sick of at this point, so as far as the actual gameplay goes, stats, gameplay, controls, mechanics, it's all there, and it's all good. And of course, you cannot have a Mario Strikers game without the aesthetic. That futuristic sort of steampunk, we bent the rules of soccer to make it our own thing aesthetic. This is the thing that made me want another Mario Strikers game on the Switch that much. It's not even just about the gameplay or anything like that. It's about the identity. And this game, I don't think it does as good of a job as Charged in that department. I don't think another Mario Strikers game or another Mario sports game, frankly, ever will. But this game still does a very good job at that. The animations and theme is here, and it's so refreshing to see that from a company that is, quite frankly, overly protective of their intellectual properties. Besides the gameplay, what set Strikers apart was its identity, its personality, us discovering what these characters are really about, seeing the different ways that they celebrated, their different voice lines. It added a level of immersion that a lot of the other Mario sports games, and even some mainline Mario games in the past, have not been able to provide with astronomically more content backed into those. I shit you not when I say the identity of Strikers is why I was most looking forward to this game. It's the kind of stuff that literally set off Pringus McDingus's YouTube channel, man. And while Daisy is not currently in the game, which... Whew! It's gonna take me a long time to forgive Nintendo for that one. It's still here for the most part, and very present. You got Rosalina sending a ball above the moon and back, you got Wario having an orgasm while eating a piece of garlic, and you have Peach resisting saying racial slurs. It's all there, and it's all wonderful. As far as the aesthetic goes, Battle League honestly feels like some weird crossover hybrid between the original Mario Strikers game on the GameCube and Mario Strikers Charged on the Wii. And what I mean by that is that the ball looks like a normal soccer ball without gear. They're all dressed in like normal soccer gear like they were in the first game. Then by putting the gear on, they look more like how they did in Strikers Charged, as well as a lot of the gameplay elements functioning a lot more from that game. Not to mention the game itself looks really nice. On top of the animations being unique, they're all very, very fluid and new. And honestly, being able to showcase that personality adds a little bit more depth and immersion, not only into the game itself, but into the Mario universe as a whole. The animations and theme is here of Strikers, and it's so refreshing to see that from a company that is, quite frankly, usually very overly protective of their IPs. But for whatever reason, when it comes to Strikers, they just let loose. Quite frankly, I'm here for it. The last aesthetic differences from the prior games over to this one would be the team names and the team colors. In the previous games, just like in pretty much every Mario sports game, your character's team is named after your character itself, and so is their respective color. Like, if you played as Mario, you were the red team. If you played as Luigi, you were the green team, Peach the pink team. That's how it's been, and you would think that that's how it always would be, but in this game, they actually added a pretty neat thing in that the teams are actually named. Like, the red team is called the Rockets, the pink name is the Magicians, the yellow team is the Charms, green the Warriors, black the Cyclones, whatever. And depending on which side of the field you're on, the left or the right, you have 5 different colors to choose from, actually. And it doesn't matter what characters you're playing as. You can be the red team, even if you're not playing as Mario. You can be the, black team, even if you're playing as Luigi. It doesn't really matter. And I think that's actually really cool. I think that changes, like, a lot of different aesthetics and makes the game a lot more, visually pleasing to look at, as well as giving the player more choice. But unfortunately, what doesn't give the player more choice would be the theme locales of the actual soccer fields, which they look cool. I like the whole thing of, like, all the fields being in space and the steampunk, and futuristic, like, sci-fi themes of, like, taking a portal to get to the match. It's all really good, and it fits the Striker aesthetic perfectly. I just wish there were more to choose from. If I'm being honest, like, there's only 5, which I'm sure it's another thing they're gonna add more of later, maybe. But it's another thing that just I feel like should have been in the base roster, which is just unfortunate. You have, like, the Lava Castle, you have the Royal Castle, you have the Jungle, the Mushroom Hill, and they all have really dope remixes and stuff like that, but at the same time, it's just kind of disappointing how there's only 5 of them, when in Mario Strikers Charged, you had not only way more than 5 in the base game, you also had every single field that was from the original Mario Strikers also included. So, frankly, I don't know what the excuse is for this game not having as much, but it's not game ruining, like some people might say it is. And now, finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, we have online, which requires an Ethernet cable pretty much like every single Nintendo game on the Switch, and even before the Switch comes before it, but like, if you weren't already playing Nintendo games online with an Ethernet cable, baby, what is you doing? I'm not trying to excuse Nintendo for having poor online, and I haven't played the game without an Ethernet cable, so I don't know what the connections are without it, but just knowing Nintendo and how they've historically been, I don't imagine it's good. But my experience with one has been quite good. I've really never had any lag spikes playing with an Ethernet cable, like literally not a single one. I haven't even had a bad connection with another opponent, which is unfortunately not something I can say for Mario Tennis Aces, which sucks. I really liked that game, and then one patch pretty much ruined it and they never went back. But regardless, the online is there for the most part. especially in the Striker League, which are online battle leagues that you can participate in and join in with your friends and join your friends' battle leagues and face off against opponent Striker leagues and stuff like that. It has a legitimate ranked mode, basically, that you can play in for coins, and I believe rankings, if I'm not mistaken, which people have been begging for in a Mario Strikers game forever, which is really, really cool. That being said, however, at the time of this recording, you actually cannot play 4v4 matches online with 4 local players. You can only do it with 2, if I'm not mistaken, which is just very stupid. It's kind of anti-consumer, really, and just goes against the nature of what this game is supposed to be. Like, the whole theme of the game, like, it's called Battle League. The whole thing is that, like, you know, you're forming, like, squads up, and, like, you're playing this game competitively with your friends and taking on the world online, but you literally can't. You can only do it with, like, 2 people at most. You can play with, like, 8 people locally on 4 different Switches, and I think even 2 or maybe 1, if I'm not mistaken. I have no friends, so I never really do that. But it's just something that I feel like, you know, among other things, should have been in the base game. This is something that I feel like should have easily been in the base roster. I think it's something that people were looking forward to. Again, it doesn't ruin the entire experience of the game, but it's just something that frankly should have been there and goes against the nature of, you know, releasing complete games before they're out. But c'est la vie. It seems to be where the industry's going nowadays. However, even without the Striker League, the online presence is still there. Like I mentioned earlier, with an Ethernet cable, I've never had any lag with any opponents, and I've even had some very fun matches playing against some very, very good players. And let me tell you, the thrill is still there. From being down 3-1 in the last 4 seconds of the match, only to score a perfectly placed and perfectly executed Hyper Strike to tie the game 3-3 within the last 2 seconds of the match. Nothing can go wrong, baby. You secured sudden death for your team, and you're gonna body this guy last minute in this hype online match that you've created for yourself, only for him to score on the first possession within the first second of overtime, rendering all your clutch moments effectively useless. Yeah. In conclusion, Mario Strikers Battle League gets 5 double Ds out of 7 for me. It's a really, really good game. I'm looking forward to playing it and unlocking more gear and just playing the online mode more and whatnot. Aesthetically, I do like some elements of the older games better, but it still very much fits the theme of Mario Strikers now, and the gameplay mechanics are all second to none. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go back to editing my podcast that you're absolutely going to listen to because I told you to. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next time.